And yes, we are live. So, welcome to Youth Flag Rugby Discussion. This is a podcast focusing on youth, non contact, mixed gender rugby union. Um, we have no animation, we have no intro music. It's just basically bare bones discussion as if we were hanging out at the pub and chatting about rugby. My name is Daniel. I am a co-host for this, and we have other co-hosts. So, JJ.
G'day, JJ here, coach of Centaurs Rugby. Who
And
else is there?
yep, Daryl, you with us?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, fantastic. And I'll tell you what, the rest of us already gave a little bit of a background of how we came to rugby. Can we basically want to put your name and your voice. Can you give us who you are and just a little bit about your history?
Okay. So yeah, I'm Daryl Jackson. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, where I started playing rugby in college. And I found rugby because I wanted to play American football, but when I got to the University of Colorado, the coach was like, unless you're crazy fast, because you're not crazy big, I don't have a spot for you on my Division I football team. So I started looking for alternatives, and so I found rugby, and it's been fantastic ever since. So I spent the last almost 2 years here in Boston being the rugby development officer for USA Rugby, which is basically trying to help grow youth rugby here in town, working together with Myro and a lot of the clubs, just really to support them and just try to help as much as I can.
Awesome. Thank you and welcome to the show. Shaggy.
Hi, it's Pete Finneran. Call me Coach Shaggy. I'm the president coach of South Shore Sharks Youth Rugby. And I had a successful Minecraft server for about 3 years.
Oh, I want to hear more about that later, buddy. The truth comes out.
Yeah.
And
multifaceted.
Awesome. And Steven.
Yeah, this is Steve with Rentham Barbarians, coach and president of the club.
Fantastic. All right, let's kick it off, guys. The first segment, we're going to go, news. We're going to hit a big topic. We're going to hit a small topic and wrap it up. So in news, there's a lot going on in news right now. Can anybody kick this off?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it out there. So USA Rugby has been there's been lots of issues and lots of speculation of what's going to be happening with them nationally. There's been a lot of financial problems that have been accumulating over the last few years, and long story short, USA Rugby has found itself in about $6 to $7 million in debt, asking for a line of credit from World Rugby, and no real good plan of getting on a path to being solvent. So currently, USA Rugby's restructuring, and there's a lot of questions out there of what's going to happen, where money's going to be coming from, what the plan is, what's going to happen essentially to youth rugby and the connection to USA Rugby and the youth community moving forward. Lots going on. The big thing with us and with the Sharks, like looking at this whole thing, USA Rugby has there's a couple options that they have. One of them is just declaring bankruptcy, but what they're trying to do is restructure, because if USA Rugby declares bankruptcy to wipe away the debt, they're going to essentially have to dissolve. And we're just going to all have to find something new and find new. That's going to set back rugby in the United States good 4 or 5 years, anyways. So there's a lot of scary things going on, really, and where it pertains to youth rugby, in particular, with the financial problems. There's been scale backs, particularly to the youth rugby community. I'm sure Daryl could attest to that. Daryl was our regional development officer, which was the best thing USA Rugby's been doing. As
Absolutely.
they created
Absolutely.
this spot where they were pushing to the youth, to the youngest, to our youngest kids, and getting them out there. And we were lucky enough to have Daryl here, and he's doing an awesome job. And with the money issues, they had to let go of that position, and I don't know. And
Yeah, I
now
think
there's issues with insurance, and it's a mess. It's a real mess.
it's there's been some discussions and emails and different correspondence coming out of Myra to some of us and to the community, and some of that includes the discussion includes what role do we want in future with Rugby USA. And there's some big questions in there, and you start asking yourself the question is, what are we getting from Rugby USA at the moment? What are we?
Yeah,
You
I
said
mean
that.
that
Daryl is absolutely agree is the most beneficial I can see for youth rugby in Massachusetts for sure. But as an individual club as well, what do you think?
Well, yeah. Well, so I'll just kind of give you my 2 cents on what's happening with the national office. I mean, I think Shaggy is definitely right. They are in desperate financial straits. World Rugby desperately does not want USA Rugby to go under. They realize that as far as emerging markets, we cannot be out of the United States. It's one of the largest markets in the world. We can't leave. So that means that we're going to get propped up by World Rugby for a little bit. That's what's going to probably have to happen. Um, on my end, on the rugby development side, rugby development officers exist in every existing rugby nation, and in some areas where I spent 2 years in Ireland. Ireland, or the rugby development officers dramatically improved the youth development structure in Ireland. Um, and while I was there, they were able to beat the All Blacks. And so they've just completely transformed their youth development program, their structure, their identification process. So it's a worthwhile venture. It's expensive. It's one of those things you have to make an investment and then you have to wait. And you have to make an investment and then you have to wait. So and here in the United States market, we're not really used to waiting. And you can tell that from when you watch like the NFL or the NBA. They hire a new head coach. You got 2 years to turn the program around. If you don't, you're gone. So
That's garbage.
it absolutely is.
yeah.
I'm sorry. That really burns my ass.
Yep.
Makes me angry.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. Because you know what? It's financially just backwards.
Mhm.
You know what? First of all, the value of the RDO and like what you did in the state was in not being connected to any particular club was to raise the tide in a different way.
Yep.
And it was very perceivable what was happening. And if USA Rugby doesn't see the value in getting people that are going to be paying 12 15 years in dues rather than someone that's going to be someone that's maybe going to get help getting a sponsorship, a high money sponsorship for a national team, then they're just backwards. It's just a backwards thinking. The larger net casts the most fish, and it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. And I love what somebody said earlier about having the long view. We pride ourselves, as rugby players, as rugby clubs and administrators, we pride ourselves in rugby being a grassroots kind of effort. You do it for the love of it. You put in the sweat, and that's what makes the grass grow. And in letting the grass grow, letting the people develop the skills and everything. I always thought of rugby as like the long-term thing. It's something that you do because you're going to enjoy and have for the rest of your life. And every aspect of my rugby has brought me more joy. Right now, I'm sitting here chatting with you guys, and this is another aspect of rugby that's bringing me a great deal of joy. So the long vision of what rugby brings, what rugby should be, I thought that was ingrained. So hearing that was that now we're going for short sighted, and USA Rugby and rugby in general is becoming more short sighted. Ouch, that hurts.
I, I think, and carrying on that, sorry to interrupt, Daniel.
Mhm.
If we're talking long term, absolutely. And if we're talking financials and talking long term, then isn't youth development the key thing?
Yes, come on,
Yeah.
guys, absolutely. That goes without saying. Oh my
Yeah.
God, the equation is right there. It's like no, sorry, facts, no.
No, line of credit, that makes more sense.
Right,
You know?
exactly,
Come on.
exactly.
The hell.
So let me bring us back in. We're talking about news as opposed to sort of getting too crazy out there. But I think the one thing that I want to hear a little bit about, and I think it's going to tie into, we're going to talk about later, and that is, how to start or starting a new club, is a question of insurance. So let me just put it out there. How concerned, or how does this affect CIPP? How does this affect the insurance aspect of it? What should people be aware of? What are the questions that people should be asking? Can anybody help me with that?
I can tell you what I think and what I've heard and what I've put together. Might
Please.
all be completely wrong. I'm going to say that,
But
but
throw it out there. Throw it out there so that people, because then we know
so
what to discount as maybe we
right.
don't have to worry about that. So throw it out there, Shaggy. Help us out.
So the issue is this: there is no real, there's no assurances that USA Rugby is going to exist past this coming year. There's like as things stand right now, we really don't know. So going into next year, we have things kind of in place. We have to have these things thought out unless there's real progress on the national front. Now that being said, through this year, that there was concern with how it relates to youth clubs through this year because USA Rugby was supposed to have paid their insurance, our insurance through the SIP through full term, and it came to light that they only paid through first quarter, and with the financial issues and the history that has gone into what's caused those financial issues and the backlash. There's very little faith in what would happen with our insurance this year, but we've heard through the grapevine things have been progressing that youth rugby and our SIPs will keep us insured at least through this year.
Well,
So it's best that we all kind of as groups, as our SROs, as not clubs, but our geographic regions need to start thinking about contingencies. Really have those things in place, and I think people are all working towards that, so we're not left with kids that are uninsured or we can't have sanctioned games.
That makes sense, and that was. I mean, I don't want to be chicken little, but that's significant. I think when questions of insurance get on the table, people have to start considering and worrying about stuff that it feels almost like you're a new club trying to figure out some of the basic things such as insurance for your club. This is something that everybody's going to have to keep their eye out to figure out how does a cookie crumble, and do we all need to then scatter and try to find a solution for this. All right, so let's put that one to bed for now. Are there any other news that we want to share? Any other clubs starting practices soon? I know we already talked about the clubs that we represent, but anything else? Any other news? Any clinics coming up? Any other development camps or anything that we have info for?
Yeah, I was gonna mention so in years past, USA Rugby has hosted a national development summit in which they would pick a geographical location, east, west, somewhere in the central of the country, and invite clubs, referees, coaches, players to come in and spend a weekend sharing ideas, getting coaches professional development, and then hosting, sometimes, not every single year, hosting um, coaching clinics, level 100, 200, referee clinics, touch judge, administration courses. This year, they thought they'd try something a little different, and this was something that they had been thinking about for a while, just based on some of the feedback that people had been given, um, and decided to do a instead of hosting it in one location, do a tour and take it around the country. So they picked 8 locations. Boston's one of them on the East Coast, um, next to DC, and so the idea is March 13th and 15th to host the National Development Tour, in which they will come out and they will certify coaches level 1, 2, and 300, referees level 1, I think it might be a level 2, administrative. There's a parent outreach as well as courses for administrators. So that's going to be hosted at Derby Academy in Hingham. There was a little bit of lag as to getting the final details out, which I think might have held some people from registering because they wanted to know the final. They wanted to know exactly, just saying it's in Boston is not good enough. I need to know exactly where it's going to be and who the course leaders are going to be and what time the courses are going to be. So we were a little late on getting that information out, but everything is out now, and so we're really making a push to invite everyone. I mean, this should almost be. I kind of viewed it as a rugby convention. Everybody in Massachusetts should be coming to this. Everyone in New England really should be coming to this. If you're a coach and you're looking for professional development, you should come. If you're a referee, you're looking at getting some skills, you should come. If you're a parent and you want to kind of know what rugby's all about, you should come to this national development tour. And then it'll all kind of culminate in the Free Jacks home opener. So this is another big feather in our cap in New England is getting our first professional club. So there's always these ideas on how you're supposed to grow rugby in the United States, and professionalism has been one of those pieces. So the Free Jacks right now are enjoying a tremendous amount of interest. I think they've nearly sold out their season tickets. So there's been a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement. So they will start out their home opener in Weymouth at Union Point on March 13th or March 14th, in conjunction with the National Development Tour.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. That's really cool. So if you participate, I'm looking at the dates here. I'm sharing this on for people that can see this that are on YouTube. I just shared the screen for the National Development Tour 2020. And you're right. In Boston, it's 13th through 15th, which is right when the game is on. So, is it happening right there, or is it close enough that then you have a break and go watch the game, and then you go back to the classroom? Do you know?
Well, I think everything will go through, and when at the end of the day, we'll actually, I'm not even 100% sure on that. Does anybody? And I'm too new to New England to know exactly how far Hingham is from Weymouth or Union Point.
They're fairly close, actually.
It's
Oh,
20
sorry,
minutes.
Steve. Go.
yeah, no, I don't think they're close enough to sort of shuttle back and forth, but they're not too far, are they?
It says it's like 20, 25 minutes
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, that's not too bad at all. That's not too bad at all. All right, fantastic. That's great news. Anything else we want to add here before we move on and try to tackle the main topic?
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and transition over to the main topic, and that is starting a team. So, Daryl, you probably have a lot of experience of people coming to you. We have a lot of practical experience. Some of us have a lot of practical experience in going through the trials and tribulations of actually starting a team. So, let's let's just go down the line and everybody talk about your experiences in starting a team, and then we'll just kind of really boil down. You see if you can flag a couple of the pitfalls, kind of the issues, the problems, the things to keep in mind. And once everybody's had a chance to kind of go through their story, and not everybody has to do it, but once we've had a chance to go around the horn, we'll go back and revisit some of these, and then see if we can use that as a launch for, hey, those are the things that we did wrong. These are the things that would be really great if we had known. So do this, please, okay? So who wants to get us started? Who wants to get us kicked off and just your experience in starting a club?
I can go through that. This is Steve with the Barbarians, and I was lucky enough when I was in Rentham here. I heard there was a team in town, or at least somebody in town playing rugby. So I showed up on a Sunday morning and I found Chip Walker a few blocks from my house. So it was him and another parent, maybe 3 or 4 kids, throwing the ball around. And so I got there right at the beginning, and Chip really did the work of getting us founded as a team. The way we did it was sort of showed up on recreation department property, and we were throwing the ball around, and the director of the rec department one day pulled up, said kind of, who are you and what are you doing? So we had a conversation about rugby, and he invited us to become a rec department team later that year. So it was a pretty good start for us right from the beginning. We had support from the town, and as we go through, I can talk about positives and things I would recommend. Yeah, yeah. I may have over simplified it, but yes, that's it. And Rentham's an interesting town. We share. The field's right across from us. There's cricket teams that play. So I think it was a bit intriguing for the rec department to have cricket and rugby and some of the sports that not a lot of the other rec departments had around. And the cricket's not a rec department sport, but it's up near those fields. So yeah, it was a great experience from the beginning, and we kicked off that fall. It was that same year we started out as a rec department team.
Mhm.
Yeah. Show up at a field that's open with some kids and a ball.
Yep,
See what
exactly.
happens.
Just
I
show
love
up
that
and
model.
start
That is the new
playing.
model. Just show up.
Well, I tell you what, I've talked about the rec department support we've had in town to anybody that will listen.
Yeah.
They've been nothing but great to us. We've been able to keep our cost lows by going through the rec department instead of branching out and becoming a more independent club and having more control over our finances and some of the other things. As a rec department team, we don't pay direct user fees for the field. That's collected through our registration, which does go right to the rec department. Anything we need, we invoice. We'll submit the invoice and get taken care of. It's a pretty low hassle way for us right now to run the club. Of course, with growth, we'd look at branching out and taking full ownership of all of our finances and everything we do. But right now, it's been 7 years, and the rec department has been great. I should also throw out there that I'm on the rec department. I'm one of the committee members of the rec department. Which doesn't hurt, but I certainly don't think we would be treated much differently if I wasn't on the rec department. So, but
I saw some girls playing netball in the car park.
yeah,
They might want to start a team too.
there you go. That's it. If that was in Rentham, we'll talk to them. We'll get. We're incorporating all sorts of things up at the Rice Complex. We're actually putting, not to get off topic, we're putting a $500,000 park up there now, a gym for kids. So we're going to have a playground and some other things. It's really a good full use facility up there. But get back on topic. We started that way as a rec department team. The first year we had 5 kids, 6 kids, and then we quickly brought in Coach Allen and Ryan heard about us, and they were here, and Coach Todd was there, and we went through the first year. I mean, even the first 2-3 years, even now, some years are a bit tough with numbers. But if I'm putting my suggestions for what to do to build a club, a couple things, find somebody who's done it before. One of the best things we did was reach out to the Wolfhounds, and Porridge came over and helped run a couple practices. We saw how people do it. We learned from the people already there that have coached youth rugby for quite a while, and we took those pieces and ran with it. The other thing that worked great, as I already talked about, was finding a partner in town, somebody that supported the program. A big challenge I know I hear from a lot of clubs is finding field space. Land is at a premium. There's soccer and lacrosse and these sports that bring in a lot of big money to towns and rec departments. So, we have our practice Sunday mornings on the field. It was one of the things we did. We worked around the schedule of these other sports that bring in $30,000, $40,000 to the town. But we found that partner in town that's been great. And, the other thing that's helped us is really baby steps and persistence. We started out with just flag rugby, and our 3rd through 5th graders, probably even some 2nd graders, maybe a 7th grader, I don't know. We had them all together playing flag rugby. We'd show up where we could. We played, the Sharks and the Wolfhounds in the early days. And with these baby steps, we were able to break up into different age groups. And, now we're at the point where we have kindergarten through high school. So it's been sticking with it during those years that are a bit more challenging than others. And
What year did you start, Steve?
2013 was our first official year as a recreation department team. We were 2012. We were out and about and sort of, it was a couple coaches and a couple of kids, and we ran around. The other thing we did, that I thought was really great. We didn't play other teams in the beginning, but we were a Sunday morning. Even at that point, actually, we were a Sunday morning club. We met all year round. We would go on walks in the woods. We would take the kids out. It was the sort of ritual to get the kids out doing something. They knew Sunday was rugby day, even if there was snow on the field and we couldn't play rugby. So we kind of kept those kids with us until we could push it to a more organized endeavor.
It sounds like you built a good community.
We did, absolutely. And a nice, inclusive community. We did.
And that's a really good, your example is a really good best practice that, shoot for the stars and good things will happen. And that is an awesome story, because I too, so when I'm looking at helping develop clubs, I do think it's also very critical to have a very good working relationship with Parks and Rec. Because like you said, Parks are at a premium. They receive a lot of revenue from your soccer teams, your lacrosse teams, maybe your flag football and baseball teams, your traditional sports. So, and you're right, if Sunday's the day that Saturday, everybody plays on Saturday, then we have to look at Sunday, and usually the fields are wide open. And but building that relationship with Parks and Rec is so critical, because they will eventually become the advocates for you and help you grow the game locally in the town, because they want kids using those parks just as much as anybody.
Absolutely, that's right. So just to round out my bit, throughout the problems we have, still to this day, is really awareness of the sport with a lot of people. Rugby, even in the 7 years we've been doing it, 7, 8 years, however long, it's really grown. It's gotten a lot more, TV time and other things, but we still have an awareness issue where somebody in town will see my Rentham rugby shirt and say, "Oh, there's rugby in town. When did that happen?" So awareness is our issue, and numbers. Just kind of getting more and more kids out to give rugby a try. It's still a bit of a challenge for us. And field space, we're lucky with it, but we do still have some issues where we'd like to get, for our tournaments, kind of branch out, and we don't always have the field space. But I think, we've had a pretty good run here in Rentham, and I have no complaints.
Well, that's a, my goodness, a template for all the things that just happened to go right. Anybody want to tell their story? Because I'll jump in. Shaggy, what was your experience like, or JJ? You just started a club. Do you guys want to share?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Shaggy go first. I'm still gonna
Okay,
hear
that's
from
fine.
the old boys and then work down to maybe
So
me as the latest one.
So my experience is about the absolute opposite of Steven. So I didn't form the Sharks. I came on, my kids started playing as they were formed. But I kind of came about later. The club was formed by Dan Mason. Did all the heavy lifting. He got a bunch of interested kids interested in the sport in the town of Whitman. It was awesome. We met up in the town park. Every I don't even know what day it was. I think Saturdays. We had Saturdays and maybe Tuesdays, and it was phenomenal. I just happened happened on this rugby team right when my son was a year too young to play. So I faked his age and he played. And
Oh my
getting
goodness.
associated. That's what we do. Well, I put a mustache on him. He's fine. So we went through that and they were playing. It was a great time. I came back. So he took a year off, and then I came back, and we started running some issues. I started coaching. We started running some issues with the field, with the town field. So issues with the town essentially. For some reason they just weren't keen on rugby all of a sudden. And we had, so then we moved from one field to the next. We were practicing right at the in the right at the park, right in the central park of this beautiful place. Then we got relegated this one spring to the outfield of this one softball field, and that's with our field. And then about 2 days into the season, we're told we have no field. So it was like, okay, so we're looking around. Dan was battling a lot of health issues. He was. So I went around. I went to a bunch of towns, town to town, like looking at all these empty fields, talking to town administrators, trying to get these kids someplace to practice, place to play. Couldn't pay anyone to get these kids on the field. Went to probably 5 different surrounding towns in Whitman. I ended up I was a membership at the YMCA, so I went to the YMCA. The director there was like, "Yeah, if we get empty fields, just go use them." So I'm like, oh, "Okay." So ever since then, I've been working on a handshake agreement with the YMCA to use their fields for practice, and I've been purchasing fields. So the first year I purchased a field where my old club, my old men's club, was playing in Weymouth. So that's where we had our first home match outside of Whitman. Then I didn't want to. At that time, I moved from Whitman to Marshfield, and growing up in Marshfield, I actually knew some people in town. I played rugby in town, so I started. I started building a relationship here. I moved our game field here. Started going to all the field meetings. Now I'm mixed in with everyone. I don't practice. I still don't practice in Marshfield because I did draw I did draw those players from Whitman, and I want to stay in a central location. I didn't think it would be fair to move that far away. It'd be just kind of an excessive drive to a lot of the kids. And plus it's a free field, so what are you gonna do? You gotta practice there. So with all that being said, the team from this point now, I've been growing in Marshfield. Marshfield is a rugby town. It has an MIAA high school team. So what I've been doing, I made a relationship with the high school program. I'm delivering my kids into that program into the spring. It kind of hurts my club because it's hard to develop that 15s team for the for the high schoolers, but still that helps the youth development aspect of it. It gives it it makes it more acceptable in the community.
So that's really cool to hear. So like
it's been helpful.
like your kids now have something to look forward to, and some of them are graduating from you and going right to the high school team. You said.
Oh yeah.
That's so cool. Like you have graduates. Like how many? 2,
Yep.
3, or have you had like a couple of years where they're just graduating or going right to playing in high school?
I just really started the 7th, 8th grade program in earnest, probably 2 to 3 years ago. When we moved from Whitman, we had a flag team and we had a high school team, and so nothing in between. And the first year here in Marshfield, we had 1 or 2 middle schoolers, but since then people have been moving up, and then word's gotten around. The people that want to get into rugby have been developing in. So I've had more kids come in, especially from Marshfield. So I'm having a good number going on to the high school team. I'm having, Marshfield, and I practice in Hanover, so I have a lot of kids going into the Hanover program as well. So probably, like 10 anyways, I'd say at this point. because especially over the last 2 years, like this season and the previous season, has been a decent amount, and it's the retention rate's really good for the sport. They want to get into it. They build their confidence and they move on.
That's
So
really cool. That is super cool. Yeah, I guess it makes it hard for you to have a Sharks high school team, but then again, you have an entire high school that's kind of looking down and saying, "Hey, are we getting people from you?" So that's a really neat synergy that you have there. That's
I'm
super
trying to
cool.
I'm really trying to build. I'm trying to build for that summer sevens team, even though that's difficult. But it's all good.
Yep.
It's all good.
Yep. That makes sense. So let me do this. We're hitting the stuff that's work right, and then we're also we want to be able to also map out the pitfalls, so that if somebody says, hey, I played rugby in college, I have kids now, I want to start a club, I've graduated from playing senior side, I want to start a club. You gave us kind of all the really cool stuff. Are there any pitfalls or any things that just didn't work right, that you want to sort of caution
Absolutely.
against?
The main thing is bringing rugby people that really know rugby into youth rugby who don't know how to deal with kids. That's kind of like that's the thing. And I've talked to all my coaches. I've had coaches come in that don't know anything about rugby, and they're great, because they're learning along with the kids, and that's like that growth. That the growth comes slow, right? And people that have been in it for a long time kind of sometimes have more problems with that. And I did too. You really got to like just sometimes with the youth side, and so that was the main problem. That and just the budgeting, the money, all that. It's that's we kind of we're always struggling with that. We're all paying out of our pockets for the first 5 years. Just
Oh,
not being
yeah.
able to essentially charge enough, not putting that price, that right price, because we feel bad about charging. So I'd say that's major issue number two.
Yeah,
Um,
putting in your own money. Um, oh my God, talk about a labor of love. But I've seen a lot of people, I'm not talking about in youth rugby, but in other clubs and other levels, senior side actually. I've seen people do that, and it turns sour. Things just end up going poorly because people are put into a position of responsibility. And they feel that it's on their shoulders, and if they don't, hey, I'll just pony up the $50 for this, or I'll just do the $100 for this, or I'll just eat the $25 for that. And before you know it, somebody's in the hole for 1,000 or two. And I'm sure that our significant others, if they knew exactly how much we spent on our hobby, would choke. What's that joke about people with hobbies? Is my only fear is that when I die, my significant other sells all my stuff for the price that I told her I paid for it, not what I really paid for it.
Yeah.
Right. So there's been times that I've stood up to the presidents of clubs and said, sorry, this is not going to happen if the community doesn't pony up for it, because there's no way that you're going to eat the entire cost for this. I think. Well, you know what? That's another topic. Let's stay away from that. But I'd say that's a one. That's a huge pitfall right there. I'd say be very careful about, putting a mortgage on the home so you can get this thing to work right, because you're doing it for noble reasons. You're doing it for the enjoyment, the well-being, the development of probably your own children, and the youth, that are around your kids' age. But man, at what cost is too much of a cost in actual money? Never mind time and all these other things, heartaches and ulcers. that some of these problems will lead into. So let me just be quiet. I'm you know that's a topic that that's just heavy. And every time I hear, okay, I'll just shut up talking about that. Shaggy, thank you very much. JJ, you got something?
Got
Daryl,
it.
do you got something? Who's up?
Yeah, look, I'll speak my piece.
Mhm.
So I suppose mine's the most current. Um, we started this time last year. I was in the country for a year or so. I went and took my son down to the Wolfhounds, and we ended up coaching the fifth, sixth grade team for a year in the spring and summer. We got to know each other. We got to know the community. I got to know the workings of it. Went to some Miro meetings. Really understood what was going on in youth rugby in Massachusetts. Got to get used to the formats and the rules of play, etc. So it was after that first year. The most important thing that happened, which was by chance, which I connected with Carrick Pell, who's the head coach at Babson and a personal trainer, and we got to know each other, and it was really both of us in mind and spirit, as well as me doing a lot of the grunt work behind putting it together. But in short, I essentially did an ROI campaign through Facebook. I had a feeling there would be community out there. We reached out through a number of social media channels. We joined town pages, expat pages, to a tune of about 40 of them. We posted to all of them. We got a list of 60 people in probably 45 days registered for interest. Then came all the grunt work of taking a plunge and setting up a not-for-profit, um, going through the registration process with Rugby USA, uh, finding out and sourcing kits, finding a field, and going into setting up the website and registration process, and roughly in that order. And the hardest thing for me was actually not finding the community. That came fairly well. We got about 35 kids to start in the first year, in spring last year, and we probably retained about 50% of those into summer with some new kids, and then into the fall season. So we ran 3 seasons last year. We took in about 100 kids overall through those seasons. So I can't say it was successful. We're happy. The budget ran. I invested. That'll probably pay back within 2 years, hopefully. We're just taking on sponsors now to help, and I don't know what the formula was that drew the people, but I think it was a lot of talking and a lot of word of mouth that really brought the first people in. Then from that, there was more. So I think with these small businesses and startups and boutiques, word of mouth is your biggest seller. All the marketing channels and Facebook posts. I really don't know how much we signed up through those avenues. I really think it was community that was built, and I think it was the fun that was being had. Um, and I think that was what brought more people.
Yeah.
I can, fingers crossed, and I'm hoping we do the same again this year,
Yeah.
because although we did well last year, it doesn't necessarily tell us it's going to be the same this year.
Yeah, I don't want to derail you, but just a feedback to what you just said. I will say that your posts on Facebook now, I was seeing them because I'm already friends with you, so I'm not a new person. But your posts on Facebook were excellent. They were some of the most professionally, looking, best looking, most straight, most. They just look great. Your posts on Facebook, the little poster things that you made, they just look fantastic. You did great. You were very active in all that. So feedback to What was part of the recipe? I don't know, but I did notice that you were very active in that, and you were great with that. Did anybody else notice that? Because I definitely noticed that.
Yeah, they look good.
Yeah,
Definitely.
JJ did incredible.
No, I appreciate that, and I won't take all credit for it. I think, like all of us, and having sort of started businesses before, and I ran effectively a hotel development company in my previous lifetime from a startup point, the conception of startup point. And we really want to focus on what we're good at and what's needed. And as small businesses, we'll all run into the same problems. And what we need to focus on our community, like Stephen had great success with. And that's really what built the clubs. But when we get distracted into areas that have costs and we're not experts at, and it takes us a lot longer than someone who is an expert, and we start to try and do all those things, it really drains mentally and draws a lot of time where it should be better spent focused on the kids, the parents, and the experience. So I had the advantage of having Singapore Centaur's support with their marketing group. So the marketing girl there, Charlie, does all those sorts of things for us. And they're just little things a few times a year, but they do take a lot of pressure off. The second one was going with like Sports Engine on the website and making it really easy. Yes, it costs, but it's administrative very light. So the heavy work in setting up is there, but once it's set up, it's easy to just publish new registrations and make changes, and there seems to be a lot of support through those things. And yeah, having an accountant and keeping watch on the money, yes. Kits can add up a lot. I've spoken to a number of people in the community, but even though I had supplies from Singapore for the jerseys, I really scraped the barrel. Even though it was my own money, I treated it as, this club needs to stand on its own to be successful. And mine's just the startup funds, although I would love to be the supporter. But as you said, Daniel, I don't. You're duly right. You're throwing money out of it every year is going to make it successful. It needs passion and people involved. And so, yeah, we did the hard yards. We sourced kits and jerseys from overseas and parts of Asia that were half or a quarter of the cost of what you're buying in the local market, but the product quality is not there. But as a startup, we just accept a little bit less, pay a little bit less, and just get it moving. The biggest one, and you touched on Parks and Recs. We're in Wellesley. I'm based in Wellesley. My community's here. It was really, really tough to find ground. So although I'd set up the company, got all the registrations of interest, insurance underway, registration of Rugby USA underway, I couldn't find any fields. And it was, I'm 6 weeks out from from starting practice, and I still couldn't get a field. Partly because
Ouch.
getting Rugby USA insurance required registering members. Registering members required me really having a field to register them.
Yep.
So everything was tied in and linked together. Fortunately, and just by luck, and I think with these things, when you start up, if you're passionate and you push, and for anyone that's going to start a club, you'll find a way, and things will fall in place. They'll come together. You just got to be persistent and push. And so we found some space at UMass Mount Ida. There were no fields available there. There was a bit of grass area. Cold called, asked the question, got the space. Yes, we pay for it. I'd prefer not to, but like us all. But it's that's where we stand, I suppose. So my big ones were field, having someone to share that journey, and to build. It's very hard to be isolated and build things alone. I think Daryl could speak to that. I don't know if he's still on. And really, you know, you got to. It's a drive. You know, you got to keep yourself driven, and that takes people around you. So people at the center, at the Wolfhounds and Barbarians and Shaggy, and it was all helpful to me that everyone was there. We could have these chats, and it could keep me motivated and pushing forward. That's sort of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on how important community is and community building, not just community. It's like an onion, so many different layers. Building, so that you get contacts in order to be able to get the fields, in order to be able to get the kids involved, in order to be able to get parents that are involved that help get the kids out, so that the parents then pick up some of the responsibilities and some of the tasks that make it easier for the whole thing to run better. Community, what we're doing right now, building a community amongst coaches or having people that you can go to and turn to and just listen to and hear what their experiences are, so you get a little bit more awareness of not just how to do it right, what not to, what not to do to get it wrong, but just to feel like I'm not alone, because a lot of times you have a couple of practices where the drill just didn't go right. You dumbed it down, it didn't go right. You dumbed it down, it didn't go right. It dumbed it down, and it seems like you walk out of that practice and you're like, where's the validation for my love of the sport when nothing seems to be going right? So there are those moments. So there's community at so many levels. I keep hearing this. I'm writing it down, and I keep putting tick marks. And community is a big part. All right, so it's funny. We're kind of going the wrong direction that I would love for this to have gone. Steve, I would have loved for you to have told your story at the end so we could leave on a happy note. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in. So it's part of, but past life, I used to be the New England Rugby Football Union, NERFU Collegiate Division III coordinator. So my job was to just administer to the schedule, the fixtures in the different clubs, and then also where possible, because it was Division III, go in and see if I could help develop some of these clubs. And then moving through my experience the senior side, there were a number of times where different clubs tried to start clubs. Now there was usually high school, so I want to talk about all the wrong things. And I'm going to completely complain, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, and I'm not saying that this is the way it is. I'm just saying that this is the way that my experience was. So, fields. OMG, that is just so hard to be able to get if you don't have fields. And I love the equation that Daryl first put. He said, space equals players. You need to have one before the other. If you have players, it equals money because people are registering to play. So now you have the money that you can use to pay for the fields. If you don't have the money up front, you're not going to be able to get the fields, so somebody has to put that seed money. I never thought about it that way. So you're kind of stuck in this conundrum where you need the money to have the fields, you can have the players, you can have the money, so you can pay for the fields. And that's the thing that I always saw as a huge pitfall. And now I'm going to go into a huge rant, and then I'll just pull myself out of it as fast as I can. I can't tell you the number of clubs and efforts that I saw fail because we tried to go to high schools and say, hey, we will set up a club for you. And we would have a team of coaches or player coaches that were going to go in there and help run this thing. And I'm not saying every high school is this way, okay? But when you come in as a competing team for resources, you are competing for players, you're competing for space, you're competing for resources, as much as the high school or an individual at the high school might say, yeah, let's give this a shot and see how it works. It always felt like every step along the way there were hurdles and hurdles and hurdles and hurdles. Every coach out there may have looked like they were behind you, but they were doing everything possible to make sure that you failed, so they could make sure that the resources weren't taken, and they could say, see what happened here. Let's not try this again. Let's not try it with ultimate frisbee. Let's not try it with any of these other fringe sports that want to come in there. The Quidditch league. And again, not every place is that way, but every time we tried going for high school, their fields were almost never available. If they were available, they were available from like 4 to 5 o'clock, which basically means that if you have your regular 9 to 5 job, you couldn't help as a coach. So it all absolutely hinged on one person who always happened to be a teacher or had the third shift. And if that person, for some reason, was not able to do it one year or the other, the whole thing collapsed. You never want to have a single point of failure. It always became a single point of failure. So I would say if you're thinking that you want to start a club and you want to start it for high school, and again, this doesn't really fit into what we're talking about because we're talking about flag. I'd say just steer clear. Go with some of the stuff that we heard here, which is tying together with a YMCA, tying together with a rec club. Do something, but stay away from that format because those were just huge, huge pitfalls. Pitfalls is high school competing head to head against some of the other more established sports that already have a stranglehold on that space because you're just not going to do well. Money's another one. I just don't see another way around needing a little bit of seed money in order to be able to get access to fields. Being tied into YMCA or rec club or I don't know, tying into an existing club and then just sort of, splitting off of it and then moving over to the next, to the town that you're in, build capacity and moving over there. That might be another one. But fields were always a huge, huge problem. Daryl, can you talk to some of the things that you've seen that worked right or just didn't work right? What you've been hearing here, does that kind of sound does that track with experience of what you've seen in the past?
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Denver, where we have a little bit more space, but still space was always at a premium. And yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of things. It's uh, having that single point of failure, that one person, that one advocate. I mean, you need the advocate to get the program off the ground and maintain and running. But once that advocate gets burnt out or moves on and does something else, then you haven't built a good network of coaches, parents, players, then everything falls apart. But I mean, the success stories that everyone's been mentioning are sends hope that there is a way forward. It's going to take a little bit of work. May have to be a little creative. May have to use some best practices. Look and see what some of the other sports have done, and just take baby steps. Um, I got a group downtown that's looking to start a club, and downtown, in like the downtown area, like Boston Commons. And the group of people that it is it's the ones that can afford to live in the really nice brownstones. So they have the money, but they want to keep it downtown. So there's not a tremendous amount of space, um, but you have a lot of expats that live in the downtown area that work for a lot of the big companies in the Back Bay area. Um, and there's also, the one thing that the guys probably just kind of glossed over was, working with Miro isn't always easy. I've talked to a lot of parents who have also worked with like Mass Youth Soccer, Mass Youth Lacrosse, and they're like, for me, that was one of the biggest pains of starting a club was dealing with the bureaucracy and the minutia of dealing with the rugby organization just so I could play
Great
some
point.
league play.
Great point.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
they don't always make it easy for you, and that's where you'll have some clubs say, you know what, I think I'll just merge with, or I'll be under the umbrella of an existing adult club, so that I don't have to deal with all that, or merge with like another youth club and then split off later. But yeah, it's I've heard that, and it's like, The only good thing that gives me hope is that I have heard, like I said, I've heard parents talk about mass youth soccer, mass youth lacrosse, and so it makes me feel that there is hope for Myro, and closing the loophole gap, bureaucracy gap.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. So
Can I chime in on this one?
absolutely,
As
JJ,
a
I want to
minor
hear this.
representative,
Yes,
please.
exactly.
As
I love this. This is so good.
as
Go,
you're-
JJ.
as I probably didn't introduce myself properly last week or this week, I'm also the acting youth committee, what do you call, director or head of committee for Myro.
mm,
And Daryl, I take it all on board because last year and the year before, when I wasn't part of the committee, I struggled and I had major frustrations. I felt like I set up that club alone without any support from the administrative bodies here. A couple of phone calls and much goodwill, but it was tough between Rugby USA and Myra. I could have walked. It was at that point. It just got so frustrating. It got frustrating registering the club again in July this year. Similar process, same issues, etc., etc. And so either you sit there and complain, or you put up or shut up. So I took the role, and I'm trying to do what I can to make it better. So in saying that, we have another youth club starting up. They're in the process. Brad from Abbey Villa Soccer are starting a rugby club, and they're in the process now. So everything we're talking about, they're going to go through, and I will definitely be passing this podcast along to him once it's ready, and also connecting everyone with him. I think we've already done that, but if he needs to reach out to support, I've similarly trying to help by connecting today. I connected them with Worcester and with Metro West clubs, youth clubs, to try and bolster some youth numbers in the spring, because those other two clubs are not running in the spring, but they're roughly within half an hour to 40 minutes away. So I think it's coming back to community again.
Yep.
And
Another mention of it.
It's all coming back again, and trying to support each other. And I feel I'm only new to this community, and I think you've all known each other a lot longer. But I do feel like the connections are growing stronger in the youth area, and the communication's growing stronger. So, Daryl, is still there, Daryl?
yeah, you hear me? I hit the mute button.
Yeah, you're definitely there. So
Okay,
JJ, and where is this club out of? Is it near Worcester? Is it Western Massachusetts or mid?
Shrewsbury?
No, it is in, and I'm still getting my way around Massachusetts, so I'm going to just pull up the email.
Is it Abbey Villa Soccer?
Yes,
I
and
think that's Hopkinton.
it's in Hopkinton.
Yeah, if you have a webpage for that, let me know. I'll see if I can put it up on the server, and I'll put it on the show notes also.
He's literally in the process of setting up a webpage. I'm going out to look at their fields on Thursday, and to talk about. They apparently have a heap of field space, and he said he's willing to give it to whoever wants to use it for tournaments and whatever we want to use it for as well.
Well, if it's centrally
nice. Yeah.
If it's central located, I think one of the best things we could do is just have a jamboree over there, so that a multitude of the different clans show up to their field. I don't know if that's more of an issue that they don't want to deal with, but it seems like a fun thing if you're just starting a club, have the validation of all hundreds of children showing up to your fields. So if we have any info on that, let's send it to me. I'll put it into the show notes. And if not, you know what? It might be really interesting to periodically check in with clubs that are starting out. And JJ, your club is kind of starting out. So have a segment in every other cast that we have where we double check and say, hey, how are they doing so far? How far along are they? You've done an incredible job with the Centaurs. Absolutely amazing. But there's going to be other clubs out there that are not going to do as well. And I'm going to share an experience right now where I am trying to start a new club and I am having a real hard time. Even though I feel like I know everything that needs to happen, I'll tell you the one thing that I'm having a problem with that completely torpedoed this season with. I was completely elated about how great this was going to be. The one thing that torpedoed this entire thing was space, space, space. We'll go in that into a second. Maybe that'll be a reoccurring thing, a check-in to see how the experiment of starting a new club will be. And what's the name of this club? You said they're tied to a soccer club. Are they a soccer club? They're trying to have a rugby club.
Well, this is interesting. No, they are a soccer club. I'm going to send you the link on the notes. They are a soccer club. But they want to go into rugby as well, under a sporting group name, I think under Abbey Villa. So they're restructuring their business on including soccer and rugby, and I assume other sports as well. I can see futsal and some other stuff in there. And I think they're just leveraging their administration, marketing, everything. Once you
And
can
space.
Economies of scale, once you can add more things, make more offerings.
So they're becoming a sports club, basically.
Yeah, effectively. So I'm just going to post this here.
Has anybody heard of this happening before anywhere else? Daryl, you're.
I'm just recently starting to get interest because what I think is happened is you have some coaches that are, their kids are playing soccer. And they're having a very successful soccer programming because soccer does a really good job at doing that.
Absolutely.
But you have a lot of expats that maybe they grew up playing rugby and a little bit of soccer, and it was so difficult to get a rugby club going that they said, I'll just go for the low-hanging fruit and do the soccer thing. Well, these coaches don't want their kids playing American football. They don't want them playing basketball. They're like, you know what? We got a great global sporting kid right here, an international superstar, and I want to keep him playing these types of games. And so maybe I'll go back to my roots and we'll do like a sporting Belmont or a sporting, wherever it is, and we'll just keep them, in this international venue of sport. I mean, hey, I'd much rather have my kid play a season of cricket than play a season of baseball, so if I can kind of keep that international thing going on, because it's almost kind of a different kid that gets into this type of a sport.
Yep.
Right. So you're either all in on American sports or you're all in on like soccer. Right. And then when you're a soccer kid, you're thinking globally, you're thinking internationally. And so yeah, I have just recently really just had some soccer coaches reach out to me and say, hey, you know what? I just happened to watch the Six Nations, or I just happened to watch the World Cup, and I got my juices flowing again, and I'm interested in what would it take to, during the off season with my soccer kids, because I don't want to burn them out and make them play soccer 12 months out of the year. What can I mix it up with?
Is this the new way to start a new rugby club? Because what I was going to do is just ask everybody. So we've talked about our experiences. We've talked about the pitfalls. Now I wanted to see if we could focus in on what is the recipe for getting yourself in the best situation as possible to be able to kick off a club. I just said it. What are all the ingredients you need? If you have those in there, you're most likely to succeed. And I was just going to kind of go through what I thought. This came straight out of left field. I mean, this completely makes sense because if you start a club tied to another existing club, which is what I'm doing, okay? And I cannot thank the Barbarians enough, partly for just letting me be a part of it and have an incredible amount of fun. Two, I'm trying to basically, like yeast, the way it replicates, it's just bloop, you get the next one out. The problem is you can't do that perfectly because you have one field space. And also, I can't get the multitudes and hundreds and thousands of kids that are going to be part of rugby in my location, Providence. I can't get them to ship out over there and practice over there and then come back over here, right? I've been doing that. I have been shipping over, a half dozen kids over there during the spring season in order for them to develop some of the skills and the love and an interest in the sport. So I thought, hey, the perfect way, there's a couple of great ways. One is just to split off and be sort of, part of a club and have that club be the incubator for you. Another one would be to tie yourself to a community center, a rec club. The next one would be maybe to YMCA. This this is perfect. You don't have the problem of the club, being, if you're trying to split off of another club, you kind of have to drive over the way over there. Now, I'm always thinking I should go over to a soccer league or to one of these, academy type things and say, hey, listen, do you need a rugby club started? You've got the kids, you got the space, you got the infrastructure, you've got everything, you got the web page for it. Oh my God! So, what do you guys think? If now we transition to what are the things you want to have as ingredients? What do you guys think are the ingredients to make this happen and happen right?
Let me just say, so I think having a collection of kids together, any kind of group, if you can infiltrate that group, for lack of a better term, and show them the merits of the sport,
Yep.
that is incredibly helpful. That's been
Mm-hmm.
the like my middle school program has been really taking off in Marshall because the youth football in Marshfield has kind of come on board. I had a coach come on board that was involved in the youth football, and then just the players, that whole group, it kind of got involved in that group, right? Uh, I can put a million things out on Facebook. I could pay, you know, hundreds of dollars for advertising. If we're not considered cool, or if the club isn't considered the cool thing to do, in amongst those groups of kids who who are able to play it and spread that through word of mouth, then it's meaningless. Um, so either you're gonna get a core group together the hard way, and then that grows around that core group, or if you're able to infiltrate, say, a soccer group, uh, get involved with local football programs, just even doing some guerrilla advertising at different groups of games, soccer games, football games, whatever. um, that's great, because what's school programs are so successful because they cater to a captive audience, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
um, and we don't have, as adults on the outside, we don't have that influence. So getting that X factor is the, what I see is the, would be the most beneficial
Yep,
thing.
absolutely. And I like the way you said it. So the infiltrate, the buy-in, the guerrilla. It ties into something that you and I were talking about earlier, Shaggy. That fits into an entire different topic. So this is kind of like foreshadowing for something we're going to talk about in the future, and that is the concept of sort of normalizing it and why it's important to just, for the sake of getting it out there, put effort into it. And again, I'm going to close that down because we could talk about that for an hour. And we're actually running a tiny bit. We're bumping up against how long I wanted to talk about this particular topic. So let's go ahead and keep wrapping it up, guys. If there's another ingredient that you
Yep.
feel is really important to make sure, even if we already talked about it, if you think it's a key ingredient in making this happen, what do you think it is? Just go. Interrupt each other. I don't care. Go.
Coaches. I think it's coaches. It's having the right people with you for the ride. Um, y-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even with the luck that we've had, I mean, it wasn't as easy as I made it sound. There's bumps in the road and hurdles. And Daniel, the crew that we may have a few people come and go, but we have a core group of coaches that have been with us since the beginning. We have, I don't know, maybe eight coaches at
Yep.
this point, nine. we just have a really great group of people that, my biggest fear with our program truly is losing losing these people.
Yep.
That's really what,
Yep.
even if we lose one or two coaches now, our club is strong enough. We have enough coaches that can, move up to the high school level, come down, help with the flag. We that's the key ingredient for us.
I think I agree totally. You've nailed it. Same with us. Nothing could have happened without all the parent coaches, the parent helpers that came in. I could not have done this all by myself. It's impossible. And everything from people helping out with marketing, spreading the word, helping out set up on the field, to running the sessions, to just being there and supporting. So totally agree. But that's helped propagate it. But those first initial steps, getting it off the ground, I think you touched on to me, the big one was before all that comes in and making that first step. Is it a big step or is it a small step? And can you just do it at minimal cost and outlay? Go to the rec department in your town, just get a summer program course set up after school,
Right.
1 day a week, and see what happens. Your outlay is not going to be much. You don't need a lot of gear. You target the younger group of kids and you see who turns up. And
Yeah.
if that works, look for bigger space. Look for Miro Rugby USA registration. You don't need to go through all that when you're running a town rec program. It seems like the right way to go.
Yeah, I agree. The
I
town rec
agree.
program, after school programs, the YMC after school program. I believe that's what Chip, the founder of our club, actually did. Went to the YMCA and did, a summer program or an after school program as a way to get his foot in the door and just introduce the sport at no cost to him. Go
Yep.
to a facility and be like, hey, I'm going to come and help you. I'm going to come to your after school program. I'm going to come to your summer camp. I'll bring my skill set. I'll occupy the time of your kids, give you some free time, and introduce this sport. And then maybe,
towns are different, and I know Daryl's got a lot to say on this as well. I can probably sum it up very quickly. I know in Wellesley, you can charge what you want. They'll take a small percentage of it, and you've got no risk. You don't manage the fees coming in. They collect and disperse all that back to you. No insurances, nothing. It's really simple. And Daryl ran some in Needham, which ran it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I've had a tremendous amount of success. I mean, just like what you guys said, tremendous amount of success with summer camps and a few after school programs. These are, for lack of a better term, it's daycare. These are parents that are like, I work during the day, I need someone to watch my kid. This is either during the summer break or after school, and you're just you're the you're there helping them fill some time, like an hour and a half, maybe once or twice a week. In Needham, we were going 3 times a week, um, and it works really well because Needham High School has both a boys and a girls varsity team, so there's a potential progression there. Um, but I think like you said, Daniel. I mean, it's I some of my best successes have been working with Parks and Rec departments. When you get their blessing, that's huge. That goes a long way when parents are looking decision as to what to do with their kids, and Parks and Rec is really kind of endorsed it. That goes a long way. And then making sure that it's as fun as possible. Kids dig that. As long as it's fun, they'll enjoy it, and then they'll keep coming back. They'll tell their friends. So yeah, getting a good working relationship with Parks and Rec, and then it can flower from there. Community organizations. I personally haven't had a lot of success with, have not had success with YMCA's here in the Boston area. Um, maybe, but I think as you get away from the city, they become a little more flexible, and
Yep. Well, there's more
Yeah.
space. And that's funny because you know what? That is just such an indicative thing. So let me go ahead and summarize what I think I'm hearing, and I'm going to take the liberty of putting it in order of what is most important down to not as much of a factor. And you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, fix me, just so that we can just sort of put this out there as a thought. And let's just be totally honest. I think we came into this endeavor understanding that we were going to be completely honest with each other and completely honest with everybody. We are not tied to USA Rugby. We are not tied to Myro. Some of us may have a relationship, but this effort, this streamcast, this podcast, our conversation, we're hanging out at the pub, just talking. What we are sharing here is not indicative of what any one of these organizations feel. So we're done with our 9 to 5. We're done with the responsibilities we've taken on from one of these situations. Now we're just hanging out at the pub. We're being totally honest. In the earlier discussion we had, with Daryl and JJ, and just being really honest about, you know what? It would be great if we had more support from our local area union. In this case, it's Maro. If they were to do more for us, in some cases, it felt like they were getting in the way. And it's funny because a current member of Miro was sharing that, and a former member of USA Rugby was the one that kind of pushed that forward. So we're being totally honest here. So I'm going to go
I
ahead.
didn't say anything. I'm
Yeah, but you were thinking it, Peter. Shaggy. So let's do this. What I'm hearing here is if you want to start a club and you want to do everything right, the first thing you want to worry about is space. It's costly, it's hard to get. Anybody that has it is going to be really stingy about being able to grant it to you. So, how do you mitigate that? Tie together into a town rec club, rec department, tie into YMCA if they have access to space. Um, Look for not the prime time that everybody is looking to use that space, but be willing to work around that, and particularly sort of after school or when people are not using it, either when it's most when your activity is going to be of most use or when it's less of an impact against other people that are using it. So tie in with rec, tie into Y, and stay off peak times unless peak times want you there to be able to babysit their kids. Just being honest. The next thing after that is community. It's one of those things that just kind of, nobody really talks about it. We didn't talk about it explicitly, but it just kept coming up over and over and over. Building community, we said about infiltrating, getting kids to accept it. Well, that's kind of your building community. So every aspect of that building community, whether it is getting out there and building it slowly, or being very strategic about it, or being very fresh about it, or being very good at it. We had examples, from JJ about he's just really good at getting communications out there that are a wide net that help build a community. So mitigate against space by doing town rec, YMCA, mitigate against the times that it's most that it'll be most useful in, build community. After that, find yourself some good coaches. Do not find coaches that cannot handle being around kids, as Shaggy put out. Just find yourself coaches that are into this passion project, this effort of love as much as you're into it. If you have those three things, you're going to be able to do some of the other things that now kind of build on that. Some of the other ingredients that make just the ability to sustain to something that is just more flavorful, more rich, more interesting, more ingredients that'll make an entire banquet as opposed to just being able to stay alive. Does that make sense, guys? Or am I missing anything? Keep me honest. I mean, just hit that BS button if I don't sound right. What's your thought?
Sounds great, Daniel.
Yeah.
You sound about on target to me.
All right,
Yep,
so
that
if
sounds right.
if you're trying to do it in a city, if you're trying to do it out in wherever, if you keep those three things in, if you have those three pillars, if you have that triangular, that triumvirate, that triangle, whatever, you're at least making it as best as you can. You're setting yourself up for success. Pitfalls, man, there's a lot of them. I mean, it's almost no point in going into all of them. We talked about them. Let's don't worry about them. Keep an eye on them. Be aware that they're out there, but for the most part, just worry about getting the right stuff, because if you're building community, if you don't have money, if you're ninja, you're ninja-ing into space that's not even yours just to get a few kids going and having fun, that's gonna work, right? So don't worry about so much about the bad stuff. Is focus on those things, and then you're gonna be doing okay. All right. Anything more to add? So the other thing, guys, we definitely blew way beyond the time we were supposed to. We are supposed to hit a small topic, and I think I'm not even going to introduce the small topic. I think we're going to just cut off the small topic. I do not want to run past the time that we're supposed to be on, because then you guys won't show up in the future, because we're just going to start late and we're going to end late. So let's kill the short topic for today. Um, let's go into the closings now. Before we go into the closing, I think for this entire podcast, or whatever we're calling this, um, I like the idea of checking in with a club that's trying to get itself going and seeing if it died or if it's doing right. I'm trying to start one in Providence. I think I took just about everything here, and I think I had a similar recipe. I'm going through a rec club. I'm doing indoor rugby in the middle of winter when parents most need their kids to be out of the house because they're destroying the house. I wanted to start right after the holidays, and I wanted it to be mid-December. Sorry, early January through February, maybe early March, and end just as the outdoor activities were supposed to happen. I found a great rec club, town rec, recreation department that had space. They had one basketball court, so I was going to actually explore doing flag rugby indoors, not one, not two, but like 3 or 4 times a week. I had a bunch of coaches that, because it's off season, they were going to be available to help coach. So there are players that were going to take some coaching classes and at least take some training from me to be able to help them be able to help participate. So I thought I had exactly what I needed. And here's the first update in the experiment. In Providence Rugby Club experiment number one. So far, it's been an absolute fantastic failure. The it hurts to say this out loud. Um, the rec club, where it usually had two basketball teams, and it used 2 different days, sometimes 3 different days for practices, in different times, I should say. And the gentleman that runs the club, he's actually a great guy. He basically said, "We need you. Come here. This is great. I have 90 kids," which I'm sure was only about a quarter of which would fall under the number of kids that I had. So I had the space, I had the kids, I had the time, the middle of winter, I had the coaches. I thought I had everything. I had the support of the barbarians. I was going to be able to borrow all their equipment because it's sitting dormant in the middle of winter. And the rec club, where it had only 2 clubs, I think something happened to one of the other recs. I'm not really sure what happened at a facility. I don't remember what it was, but it went from 2 clubs to suddenly 7 clubs. And he had to coach all of that. He had to put it all into his one basketball court. So the one year that I decided, let's go ahead and do it this year, it just fell apart. I even started shipping kids out to the barbarians so they could be my ringers, and I would seed them between the different nights, 1 or 2 per night, so at least each new team would have somebody in there that already had rugby. I thought about everything. I couldn't mitigate. I never thought that and it all comes down to space. Uh, that space is not available. The whole thing's fallen through. This week, next week, I'm going to touch base with this guy again and see what's going on. I think in his mind, he's thinking, hey, you know what? Instead of giving him terrible indoor space in the middle of winter, I'll give him outdoor space in the spring, which under any other circumstances would be great. I don't have my coaches at that point. I don't have the equipment at that point. So I don't know what I'm going to do. So that's a quick little update and experiment. And JJ, let's touch bases with this other club that's trying to get themselves going, who is basically splitting off of the other club. I think it was the Abbey Villa. I'd love to be able to, from you or somebody, get an update week to week what's going on there. All right, folks, let's bring it into like the wrap up. We're running really late here. Let's bring it up to the wrap up. Any shout outs, any last thoughts, any ideas, any statements or anything? Let's just go from the top of the Discord down. Hopefully my ramblings gave you a little bit of a chance to think about stuff like that. JJ, what are you thinking?
Big shout out for the next session. I'm going to tell you about my New Zealand rugby camp that we're going to run in July.
Oh, yeah, big shout out for that. I totally want to hear about that. Okay, so I guess I'm next. Shout out, you know what? It's something that I should have done last week. Last week I did a shout out to the Free Jacks because they are kicking off. I'm excited about that. But truly, if I was smart and I thought about it and not tried to go outside the box, shout out to you guys. For helping to participate in this. Just another example of how rugby has just brought a lot more joy into my life, and I hope you guys are having fun with that also. All right, so that's my shout out. Daryl, what do you got, buddy?
We too have a camp coming up this summer. We're partnering with Nike, and they did
Whoa.
one last year, and so this is one that's in partnership with Myro. So hopefully, I'll have some more details.
Okay, as soon as you get them, let us know. We'll put it up on. We'll put them up.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, now I gotta follow that. All right.
Well, shout out to my to all the Sharks coaches, because I didn't list you guys as the most important thing in starting a club, and that was bad. I'm a bad administrator.
Awesome. Steven, what do you got for us?
Well, I was going to wait, but I guess I'll give this shout out now to Atlantis Rugby Sevens, who has agreed to come up and host a high school sevens camp here with the Barbarians at some point soon. Just have to get the date set.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Very, very, very cool. All right, guys. Unless there's any last parting words, thank you guys for participating in this week, and for all of you that are consuming this, listening to this, watching this. Send us feedback, send us questions, send us ideas, and I hope this has helped you, particularly if you're out there trying to start a club, or if you're in the initial stages of starting a club. I hope this helps you feel like you've got community with you. For those of you that are really established, I hope this gives you a sounding board to throw your thoughts up against and see what sticks, or at least to challenge your concept of what's out there. So from all of us and everybody out there, you guys have a great night. We'll see you next week or whenever we get the next show out. Okay.